In this video, we'll consider the risk profile. The risk profile of a business is the sum of all its exposures, and that can only be determined if there is solid, defensible information about the likelihood and consequence of each important risk being faced. Without such risk information, one cannot verify whether the business is being run within the bounds of its risk appetite, nor is it possible to optimize its risk management strategy and compare the risk of different decision options with any meaningful level of precision. A risk profile is defined in ISO 31000 as a description of any set of risks. This set of risks can relate to the whole organization, part of the organization, or they could be otherwise defined. Risk identification is a key step in the risk management process. One purpose of enterprise risk management is to assure that all relevant risks are identified and recognized, so they receive proper attention. The risk profile is a valuable tool for identifying risks. Therefore, a risk profile is a representation of an entity's overall exposure to some specific risk or group of risks at a given point in time. A risk profile may be inherent, that is, it describes the company's or the entity's current risk profile, or it may be a target or a desired risk profile, which the organization wants to adhere to over time, based on its risk appetite and strategic objectives. Most risk profiles are inherent, prepared at a reasonably high level in the organization. They must be continually kept up to date to remain relevant and useful. Some confusion may arise over the difference between a risk profile and a risk assessment, in that the profile is a rather high-level risk assessment. A risk profile is more useful for establishing risk management priorities than it is for designing specific risk treatments. The current risk profile may be a useful tool for directing where a more detailed risk assessment is needed. Profiles and assessments are two very different risk management tools. A risk profile identifies high-level areas of greater or undesirable exposure that require management attention. By contrast, a risk assessment is describing potential consequences and probability of a risk and describing how effective controls will be against it. Risk maps and risk registers are common tools for assembling risk information into some sort of risk profile or portfolio. The information found in these tools includes identification of the risk and a summary assessment of the risk. A risk register may also include summary information about a risk management strategy. One of the most common errors in enterprise risk management is the incomplete or even inaccurate identification of a risk. We have relied on the risk equals consequence times probability definition long enough now that it ought to be close to second nature. Many risk identification efforts stop with half of the risk identified. A focus on consequences without probability is a threat assessment. A focus on probability without consequences is a vulnerability assessment. What enterprise risk management requires is a risk assessment. Risk maps and risk registers are two tools commonly employed by ERM risk managers. Either or both tools can be based on the results of high-quality risk assessment, but they need not be.